I understand you're also involved in the Roseanne reboot.
Yeah.
You're executive producing
I'm
it?
so
yes,
excited
we're bringing back
this.
Roseanne.
I mean,
Did anyone
that's
see
major.
Roseanne? Yeah.
Very major.
I just saw her a couple weeks ago, and I'm in awe of all of them.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, I was like, okay, great, I'll come in and write. And it's, you know, I grew up on Roseanne. It was like a religion to me. So I was so excited to go back. And but I did not anticipate how nervous I would get around John Goodman. Do you guys know John Goodman?
Of course.
Sure.
So I also kind of have a crush on John Goodman. It's uncontrollable. It makes me very awkward around him. Do you have any celebrities you've met where you just were like, oh, I didn't expect to get so frazzled around? Has that ever happened?
Well, I mean, we feel that way about you.
Yeah.
All right, well,
So
I'll show you my Ryan Seacrest tattoo later. In that case.
We saw it yesterday at the water slide.
What does John cause you to do?
Like, okay, so when I get nervous, apparently, around a man like John Goodman of that status, I just start uncontrollably lying.
About what?
Isn't that weird? He was like, you know, I was doing this big book tour, and he was like, hey, where were you this weekend? And I was like, oh, I was in Tampa, and I was in St. Louis and New York. And he's like, oh, I'm from St. Louis. Where did you stay? And in that moment, I realized I hadn't been to St. Louis. Like, I was going to St. Louis, but I just conflated them in my head, and I know nothing about the place. So he's like, where did you perform? And I was like, the Pantheon Theater, which sounds like a theater. But he was like, oh, when did that get built? And then I'm making him like feel bad for not knowing the city as well as I do. And meanwhile, I've never been there, and he's asking me really specific questions about where I stayed, and I'm like, oh, the Marriott. He's like, there's a Marriott there? And I'm like, God, how am I
It's a special talent you have.
Yes, so now he's somewhere like trying to book a room in a Marriott that doesn't exist. Like, it was awful. And so I just avoid him entirely now.